Keith, since Friday night, what's been the focal point of this team, both in terms of mental build-up and just what you're trying to physically work on since the game?
I think more than anything, just emotional engagement. Making sure that we're juiced up for the tournament, that we're not too worn down to compete. Make him understand, what they can accomplish. That's probably been the gist of it. It's really not really basketball related at this point.
You said it's go time for the last week or 2 weeks now. Do you think that's resonated with the guys understanding the importance of this time of year and maybe a position that they've been in that they haven't been in to date in recent history?
Well, I think once we get there, I think as you go in the tournament, it becomes more fun. So, I think the first game will be the hardest game for us, and then from then on, I think it'll be downhill.
Opponent-wise, how do you prepare maybe for it's a little bit of an unknown? It's the first time you've kind of prepared for an unknown A10 player facing either GW or Fordham, teams that have maybe given you some issues at times, both ways.
Well, I think both games are hard games for us. I feel like the first round game is going to be harder than the second round game for us. I really do. I think there's no question we'll play against Rhode Island. The problem is we've played 4 games against Fordham and GW, and they've all gone down to the last possession. So, for us to think we're better, or for people to think we're better than them, it's not really true. Both teams present challenges. Fordham has really done a good job of keeping the ball out of the post and guarding us. GW has guarded us as well, and then created problems with spacing and shooting a 3 on us. So, we expect both teams to be difficult. Fordham beat GW twice, but both of those games were one-possession games. So the other hard part is we have no idea who we're going to play.
You've mentioned, and the guys have mentioned, having chips on their shoulders throughout the year, and I know that you mentioned it at the end of practice, and something I mentioned as well. Experts are talking about Dayton. They're talking about St. Louis coming in as the hot team. They're talking about Richmond, but they're talking about everybody except you guys, and you guys are right on the doorstep. Just how do you use that as a motivational tool this time of year, or is it something that just is unspoken, the guys can just go at it their own way?
I talked about it all year, so I'm not really talking about it much. The only thing I know is we won at St. Louis, St. Bonaventure, and VCU, so we're clearly good enough to play with anybody in the league. We just have to play better. And I think we should play with a chip on our shoulder because it's obvious nobody thinks we can win the tournament. You don't ever hear them talking about us. And that's everybody from top to bottom. Every basketball guru in the country, you never hear anybody that talks about the A10 ever talk about us. They'll talk about St. Louis, they'll talk about Davidson even. They'll talk about VCU, and then all the other teams above us. So that's just the way it is. That's the way life is. You have to fight to get what you deserve. And I wouldn't want it any other way, really.
How much of an advantage at this time of year is the paint play that you've established? You've seen your team and other teams be willing to take the three-point shot, but guys like Mike, guys like Bailey, who's come on in the last couple of months for the most part, guys like Marcus who have really broken out. How much of an advantage is that paint, especially at this time of year?
Well, I think, listen, what really it comes down to this time of year is, do you have a good defensive mindset, and then are you going to shoot the ball in? If we shoot the ball in, we'll win the tournament. If we defend like we have all year, if we shoot the ball in, we'll win the tournament. Now, that's a big if.
Sure.
Right? Everybody can say that. There's probably 8 teams in our league that if they shoot the ball in, they become difficult for Dayton. And I'm sure Dayton defensively will work to make sure they don't shoot the ball in. But, I just remember when Shaka was at VCU, they finished 4th or 5th in the Colonial, got hot, made shots, and went all the way to the Final Four. It happens.
With Maciej, I know we've talked several times at length about the tough year he's had, but how have you specifically in the last handful of games liked the way that he's shown more consistency and shown more ability on both ends of the floor?
When guys try, and they try hard and practice every day, I may not like their performance, but I respect what they do. And I've had nothing but respect for Maciej all year long. He continues to get in the gym. He continues to work hard. He continues to fight even though things haven't gone great for him. And I think in the long run, you'll see him bust out before it's all over. whether that's this year or not is really irrelevant. He's got enough character and enough work ethic that he'll fix every issue that he has and become a very good player.
You've used the depth more frequently this past month plus. Just how does that maybe bode well for a tournament like this, where that's something you're going to have to do? It's something you experienced in the Bahamas earlier as well.
Well, I think as you go in that tournament, that depth becomes even more important. So game 1, it might not factor in much, but game 2, game 3, game 4, it really factors in. By the way, I'm packing for 4 days, so I hope I have to use the clothes. And if I have to turn things inside out, I'll turn things inside out, but I'm packing for 4 days.
How do you make sure the guys have that same mindset to pack for 4 days? You don't want to overlook Thursday night, but you also want to envision yourselves that you've been here in this moment from a mental standpoint.
Well, if you're a competitor, that's how you're going to think. Like at this point, I can't put that in them, right? Either you're a competitor or you're not. But we've shown it against higher level competition that we're competitors.
I know I don't want to get too far ahead, but from a psychological standpoint, if this weekend doesn't work out and the NIT calls, will you answer?
Yeah, we'll play. Like the NIT in a lot of respects is as good a tournament as the NCAA. You know, you have a lot of good teams in the NIT, and it's a high-level tournament. Obviously, everybody wants to play in the NCAA, but there's a lot of good teams in the NIT. And it's hard to get into because in the men's tournament, there's only 32 teams. I think there's 48 in the women. So it's really, really hard to get into the NIT because you have automatic qualifiers as well. So, you know, any team that wins the regular season and doesn't win their tournament gets an automatic bid to the NIT. So it's hard there's not that many at-large bids.
When you look at the conference in general, I know you're tunnel vision on your team, but can you respect what Dayton's been able to do and how this went from maybe a three bid league to maybe just a number 1 seed?
Well, that's the unfortunate thing. In the Big Ten and leagues like that, when they knock each other off, it doesn't really have any effect on the NCAA tournament. But because our league is so balanced, and we don't have the reputation of the Big Ten, when Dayton wins every game and like, you know, a Rhode Island doesn't beat them, or a St. Louis doesn't beat them, or a Richmond doesn't beat them, or VCU goes flat, now we go from a 4 or 5 bid league or a chance to get 4 or 5 teams in to a league that might only get 1 in. And that's unfortunate because our league's really good.
What does that say, though, about this? Is it disappointing in the respect that I know that when you came here with the idea of this being a 2 or a 3 bid league, but this year, unless something changes, it's going to be a 1 bid league? It's a damn good 1 bid league, but a 1 bid league.
Well, I think if Richmond goes 2 games in the tournament, they'll get an at-large. And maybe even Rhode Island. I don't think, maybe St. Louis, you know, because they've come on strong at the end. So there's still possibility for it to be more than a 1 bid league, you know, and possibly a 3 bid league. So let's say Dayton doesn't make it to the finals, and 2 of those teams do with a couple good wins. Somebody beats Dayton, like a Rhode Island or Richmond beats Dayton, or St. Louis beats Dayton. Now it could be a 3 bid league. Sure. So like, that's a weird thing about the NCAA tournament, but every one of those teams is good enough to win in the NCAA tournament, including us. Like, we're actually built pretty well because we're big and strong. If you're not big enough, the NCAA tournament's hard to win in. And so, from that perspective, it'll be disappointing if it's only a 1 bid league. And then the other part of it is it took me 5 years to get to the NCAA tournament at Akron with a better base to work with, right? So, we've made progress. You can see how quickly it changes. Look at Dayton. Their first year was mediocre, a little better last year. And then this year, you know, they exploded. Now you have to have a pro. That's going to be the key, is getting that pro.
From a psychological standpoint, losing Friday night's game, you don't get the double bye, so you don't have the 2 days, that extra day off, which maybe helps you guys. Is it maybe a better case scenario? I know you don't want to lose the game, but from a mentality standpoint, getting to coach the guys the way you see at crunch time and not having that extra time off?
You know, this is going to be a strange answer, but for us, I don't think it matters.
Okay.
Like, every game's going to be hard for us. It doesn't matter if we you know, we play the worst team in America or the best team in America. They're all going to be hard for us. That's just the way our team is right now. We have a few deficiencies which make it hard for us to like blow a team out. But we also have some attributes which makes it hard for anybody to really beat us.
Mm-hmm.
So like that's the weird thing about this team. We're the same against everybody.
How intangible wise has the aggression of this team seemingly gone up? It seems like they're willing to be quote unquote men more often this season, especially doing some dirty work in the post.
I think we're better. I mean, I think we still have a ways to go to really get what we want. You know, we certainly aren't perfect. And I think that's part of the evaluation process of figuring out how to become better. Like when things go well, when things go poorly, you still have to treat your business the same. You have to self-reflect and evaluate and be objective and understand what you can do better as a coach and what your coaching staff can do better, and then also, where you have to improve. You know, it's pretty obvious to me we have to improve our shooting.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you compare us and Richmond, for instance, they can hit you boom, 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 and the game's over. We haven't been able to do that as much as them. Like, I don't think they're much different than us,
Mm-hmm.
and in some ways we have some attributes that they don't have, like shot blocking. But they have that ability to make shots, and I think if you look at the teams that have struggled in this league, a lot of it is shooting based.
Mm-hmm. Last one I have for you is, I know that you're a very goal-oriented coach in the sense of putting Duquesne where Duquesne hasn't been. Winning your first game would be the first A-10 win in the last handful of years. Do you view that as a goal, or do you view that as just a temporary roadblock for how special you all can be, or this year can be?
Well, I certainly want to win in the tournament. I've been a good tournament coach, right? But I'm not going to put that kind of pressure on me, the program, or the players. Regardless whether we win, let's say we win the first game, lose the second game. Is it that much different of a season than if we lose the first game? Or now if we win the first game, win the second game, win the third game, win the fourth game, now that's a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
So until I get the big prize, I'm not worried about the little prizes. Like, it's been nice. Like, it gives us credibility. It allows us to go out and recruit people. It shows that we're not a doormat anymore. We've shown we can be a consistent winner. You know, we haven't been a big winner yet, but we're a pretty good winner. And so, like, I'm not going to put that kind of pressure on our program. I refuse to do that.